Answers in Genesis is a hate group. No longer content with trying to back up the ridiculous story of a worldwide flood and a bunch of animals on a boat, they also preach about their own arbitrary morals and subject people who fall outside those boundaries to lies and abuse. The following piece of video is something that may make you want to take a shower after viewing it.
I'm feeling tall today. Can I identify as a 10 feet tall?
A complete non sequitur. Equating physical stature with gender dysphoria is ridiculous. You may want to be taller than you are, but as far as I know, you cannot feel taller than you are. Height dysphoria is a real condition, but it is entirely psychological with no underlying biochemical cause.
Welcome to Answers News for Monday, October 24, 2022.
My name is Tim Chafee. I'm here with Patricia Engler and Dr. Gabriella Haynes, and I'm not sure if that was meant as a joke for the tall guy here, since I'm about 6'9". I identify as a tall person because I am a tall person, but we're going to be talking about that in just a little bit, actually. The recent explosion in children identifying as non-binary.
Using the word explosive is purposely done to create fear. It evokes images of destructive force.
In addition to several other news stories. So let's jump right into that one. This one comes from Maryland. There's a school district there where the number of students identifying as non-binary over a 2-year period went up by 582%.
Almost 600% in 2 years.
Right, and so we're not talking about there was one student in this school and suddenly there were 6 students. This went from 35 students in 2019 up to 239 who are identifying that way. So
switching from percentages to actual numbers is also a way of accentuating the fear. Let's take a look at what they are not telling you, probably because most fundamentalists are scared of even basic arithmetic. The number of students who enrolled in the Montgomery County schools in 2021 was 158,232. Going from 35 students to 239 would mean that the percentages increased from 0.022% to 0.151%. Put that way, the number is minuscule, which is another reason why they don't want to do a simple calculation.
If the argument that we've heard for a long time that people are, that this is how they are born, or that you wouldn't be seeing these drastic changes like this. It would be something that would be kind of holding steady at the same time. But instead, what we are seeing from social and cultural pressures, we're seeing this drastic increase in these numbers.
They are no doubt purposely completely ignoring the most likely explanation, that the greater social acceptance and openness of LGBTQ people makes those on the spectrum more comfortable in making themselves known. They know that they have a greater sense of community and can more easily communicate, congregate, and have less chance of losing friends and family.
Yeah, and it really makes sense if you think about just the age that these kids are at. Like, as a preteen, you are at a very sensitive and vulnerable age, and you're going to be looking for affirmation. You're going to be going through some kind of tumultuous changes, thinking about what your life is going to be like. And if you see everybody around you doing this and then being affirmed and loved and being called brave and powerful for it, like, that's
being
naturally
praised.
going to draw you. Yeah, and the leading questions as well, as you might have noticed that they're asked on the intake forms. I believe you pointed that out as well.
Tell us something we don't know. Anyone who has gone through teenage years has experienced all sorts of conflicting emotions and ideas. And asking for their preferred gendering on intake forms is not a leading question. It's an acknowledgement that everyone deserves to have such feelings respected.
Yeah, and also the other thing, it's also media, right? You go and you see series, you see movies and music, and all that talking about and affirming and praising and honoring those people. So you just feel like, hey, I want to be accepted, especially in that age, like in the school system that they're talking about here in their age, they want that affirmation. And it's just like they feel embraced, and that's how it happens, but
if what you said was coming from someone who promotes acceptance and understanding, someone who believes that we should all be treated as equals, I would applaud it. But I'm certain that you'll find some way of screwing this up.
It's just really, really sad to see the situation that we as a country, and that's not only happening here in the United States, it's happening in my country, in Brazil also. This push, for this idea, which brings a lot of confusion and no sense of reality, and it's not helping any one of those teenagers.
And there it is. According to you, they should not be allowed to be themselves and feel happy. They have to be forced into stereotypes based on your religious views.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's, it's sad already, like we were talking about, but there's something very sinister going on as well. You're going to notice a theme in a lot of these articles. There's really an attack on the family. And in this particular one, the students are not only asking how they they're being asked how they identify, but also how supportive are your parents or guardians on a scale of 1 to 10 of your decision to be classifying yourself as non-binary or whatever. So then, of course, if the parent isn't supportive enough, guess who's going to come down on them? And it is quite sinister, actually. And so we're seeing a lot of that. And Patricia, like you talked about, at that age, when the kids are already feeling at odds with their parents, almost like naturally by the time you're about 12, 13, 14, because you're getting to that point where you want some independence, and yet it's easier for parents to think that they're still like kids, because in many ways they're still acting that way. And so there's always that tension often that tension at that age, and then to be driving a bigger wedge from within the school doing that, it's sinister.
Other than when you stated the obvious about wanting more independence, that was hateful bullshit from beginning to end. Questioning students about their feelings of acceptance is entirely legitimate if you truly care about their emotional well-being, and you have no evidence that the school will take action against parents unless it is clearly warranted. It is not an attack on families, and using words like sinister is, again, simply sowing fear for no reason other than to push your biblical agenda.
Yeah, and you see attacks on families and attacks on youth as a very common strategy for revolutions, because it influences the future generation and it destabilizes the family unit, which is this pillar of cultural stability. And if you just think of it on a spiritual sense, like this is also kind of a hit to the most vulnerable part of young people's identity at the age when they are the most vulnerable, and at an age when you can really get them to make decisions that will impact their future health as well. So,
How is allowing a person to express the identity that makes them feel comfortable and happy a bad thing? And as far as being a common strategy for revolution, that started a long time ago, and you are fighting a desperate rearguard action that is doomed to fail. Most of your idiotic ideas have already been guillotined.
you can see that if you wanted to do, for spiritual reasons, an attack on the family, this would be a very effective way to do that.
If you're worried about the future of the family as a pillar of cultural stability, that can be easily maintained by having the family accept those on the spectrum instead of demanding that the individual change.
Yeah, and as you said, they're attacking the future. They're attacking their own family, the next family, because those are the teenagers. Those are the ones that in more years, they're going to be, finding someone and getting married. And then if they're understanding the world that way, they're going to be teaching their kids also those things. And it's just really sad, because we know that it's not you said that, I thought it was really well put. It's not a nature thing, right? It's a
Nature,
yeah.
The nature nurture thing.
Yes. So they're being nurtured, on those things, and that's the sad point on that. That is not something that they're just being taught that they are like that.
Bullshit. That ship has already sailed and sunk. The evidence for nature is overwhelming, and you are denying it because it doesn't fit your outdated Christo-fascist views.
And some of this, I think we would recognize some of these are doing it just because that's what they're feeling like you're pressured to put down as an answer. That's the cool answer. That's the one that might upset my parents or whatever. So it's not like that many truly are necessarily identifying that way. Yep. But still, that's a very high number. And this is not a small school district. This is the largest public school system in Maryland, the Montgomery County School District. So this is it's very sad news out of Maryland, but it's not a it's not unexpected given our culture, given what young people are being taught, not just at that age, but if you go back even when they're younger, they're being, and I'm going to use this word, they're being groomed to think that way,
Right.
from the media they hear, from the books that they're being
Taught.
that are being read to them or being assigned to them when they're in elementary school. This is something that has been a major push within our culture for the last 2 to 3 decades, and we're seeing the fruit of it right now.
The accusation of grooming is so disgusting, I'm not even going to dignify it with a response. And do you really think that people on the spectrum are going to do this because they think it's cool? Despite greater and increasing acceptance, there is still a lot of stigma attached to gender identity and expression, and the threat to individuals, their families, and their lives is still very real. The sort of garbage promoted by Answers in Genesis is one reason for that situation. And for you to think that someone who is already apprehensive would willingly put themselves in a position like that just because it's cool is stupidity in the extreme. You are trying to scare people into a lifestyle that you think they should live, not allowing them the respect or dignity of choosing their own path. Your opinions are no less than hate speech, bullying people who are vulnerable both physically and emotionally. You disgust me.